Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of your Monday morning shot of caffeine with a side of real estate. Today's going to be a busy day for me, so I have supersized my shot of caffeine in a coffee cup that I got from my oldest daughter, who went on a vacation to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and all I got was this lousy coffee cup. But it's a big one, so I'm using it to supersize my shot of caffeine today. So today, I want to talk a little bit about appraisal, but before we get into that, I want to mention to you that if you are hoping that interest rates were going to stay about where they are, chances of that happening now are not very good, based on the fact that here on March the 15th, when the Fed meets, more than likely interest rates are going to go up again. So if you're waiting for the bottom to hit in interest rates, you're probably already there. So you might want to take that into consideration if you're thinking about buying a house. Now today I wanted to talk a little bit about appraisal and how important the appraisal is to a real estate transaction. Now if you've recently bought or sold and you lost out on a transaction because the house didn't appraise high enough, I'm wasting my breath on you. You already know how it works. But here's the thing. On an appraisal, the appraiser is really out there protecting the lender. Buyer thinks they're out there protecting them, but they're really going to be out there to protect the lender. The whole idea here is for the lender wants to know, worst case scenario, let's say I have to take this home back from somebody who buys it, never makes a payment, and I have invested as the lender. I've invested all this money into this transaction. Am I going to be able to recover that? Am I going to be able to get my money back? And that's what the appraiser tells them. And if the appraiser comes back and says, hey, you know, maybe the market is such that this buyer is willing to pay an inflated amount, but the house isn't really worth that. And so the lender's going to say, well, I'm only going to loan based on what the appraiser says, not based on what the buyer wants. And that can kill a transaction. From a real estate standpoint, when you're working with a real estate agent, what makes that so important is that to know how an appraiser appraises property, the principles that they use. For instance, there's a lot of things that will come into play in a real estate contract that when an appraiser looks at it, they're going to say, there's no value here. Money-wise, dollar-wise, there's no value here. Things like paying closing costs. Yes, it is going to be reflected somewhere in that seller's price. If the seller's picking up $5,000 of the buyer's closing costs, that's going to be reflected in the sales price, because the seller's not going to be willing to do it unless they net the amount of money that they want to net. Well, as far as an appraiser is concerned, when they see that $5,000 that a seller is paying on the buyer's behalf has no value to the lender. Here's another example. In a market like ours, where one-stories especially sometimes get multiple offers, well, you get people who are more interested in getting the house than getting a good deal, so they all start bidding against each other. Or sometimes maybe that's encouraged by asking for highest and best. Well, when the appraiser goes out to appraise that property, if that property sells for $5,000 above list price, the appraiser's going to look at it and go, well, the only reason that happened is because of the market. And so, yes, today the house may be worth $5,000. 6 months from now, when the market evens back out, all of that additional money that buyer was willing to pay just to get that house, it has no value. 6 months from now, when the market has leveled out, that value is gone. So the appraiser is going to be very careful as to whether or not they are going to appraise the property that high, based on the fact that 6 months from now, that value may not be there. Again, it is all about protecting the lender. So when it comes time for a real estate agent to be pricing your property, make sure that they understand how an appraiser works, because ultimately, that's who we have to satisfy. If this is a financed transaction, like better than 80% of them in Houston area are, then that's who we have to satisfy. We have to satisfy the appraiser that is the value of that property. Now, if I can ever help you with pricing your property or with any real estate need, I'd be happy to do so. My name's Donald Leonard. I'm with RE/MAX Northwest. You guys have a great day. Have a great week. Enjoy your coffee and take care, y'all.